Page 6 is dealing with the deposit and what's going to happen with the buyer's deposit. In this first paragraph, liquidated damages. If the buyer fails to complete the transaction for no legitimate reason, his deposit is at jeopardy. And actually, up to 3% of the purchase price is the amount that the seller is entitled to for liquidated damages. But what you want to remember, the seller can only retain the actual deposit paid. And that's why I said you never want to increase the initial deposit, because that's the only deposit that the seller is entitled to. So if the listing agent failed to get you to put 3% deposit into escrow, well, then the only deposit that could be considered liquidated damages is what's actually on deposit with the escrow company. So your buyer is going to have to initial this, or the offer will probably be countered. Now, if some legal issues do come up, this covers dispute resolution. There's two other options besides going to court. The first one is mediation. Mediation is just where all the parties come together and try to work out a mutually agreeable solution to the issues at hand. However, you are not bound to mediation. If everyone comes out of the room and decides, I don't like it, I'm not happy, they can walk away and take another course. The second course could be arbitration. Arbitration is not free. You hire an arbitrator, but it is less costly than a lawsuit. The negative thing about arbitration is binding. And they don't always go by the letter of the law. So you may get a judgment against you, and it isn't even strictly by the letter of the law. So be careful in encouraging your client to agree to arbitration just for the fact that it's less expensive than a lawsuit. It may not truly end up in his favor, and it may not meet all the legal requirements. So then it's just warning both parties that terms and conditions of this offer, what can happen if either party fails to meet these terms and conditions, and reminds both parties that time is of the essence, as we learned that the time frames are very critical to the successful close of this transaction. So the very last page, page 8, probably the most critical part is here on the top, how long you're going to give the seller to respond to this transaction. It's built in that you're giving them 72 hours. I recommend less than 24 hours. After you've worked with this client for months on end, showing them properties and taking them to lunch and spending a lot of money and driving around at $4 a gallon, I'm sure you don't want to give any time for another buyer to sneak in there and get their offer accepted before you've got it signed on the dotted line. So I hope you've appreciated this training session. Don't forget to fill out the bottom part where it outlines who's representing who, and fill it out completely as shown here. And good luck on showing properties, and I hope you have a lot of successful closings.